Hi everyone, this is Caly. Thanks so much for being here. I am sharing a double slider surprise card today. That's an extended scene that originally is a A2 sized card. So if you've never seen this before, you're in for a treat. And if you have seen this before, it's always nice to revisit older dies that we haven't used in a long time. Today's card uses two sets that I love and adore, the unicorn picnic set as well as the little mini A Little Sparkle set. These unicorns coordinate perfectly together and it just creates more images for you, especially for an extended scene. You want a variety of images, and so they're perfect together. Okay, so I stamped my images with lawnfawn's jet black ink. That's a hybrid ink that's perfect for Copic coloring. And now I'm just adding some very simple coloring to these images because unicorns are white, clouds are white, but I'm gonna go ahead and add a little bit of color. So I'm adding a bit of blue to the clouds and some light grays to the unicorn. You can barely see it, but in real life, it really does make a difference to give a little bit of color and shading to those little critters. When I get to the unicorn's mane, I really want to make it colorful, so I'm adding a full rainbow here from pinks to purples. So each section of hair is going to go from one color into the next and then repeating that process until I get through the full rainbow between all of the different strands of hair. And then for the fairies, I'm using the colors that I've already used on their mane, and I'm just making it a little bit more cohesive by using those colors again. That way I don't have a bunch of markers, and then coloring their hair. Now that I'm done, I'm going to set everything aside after I've die cut, and we're going to work on the slider mechanism. This is the double slider surprise die. The first piece that I set down is going to be die cut twice to fold together as a housing unit for the mechanism slider panel. That is going to be die cut from the one that I'm holding now. And then that smaller stitched rectangle on the right is going to be what slides in and out. So we're going to want two of those. Everything will make more sense when we get to those sections later. And there are a bunch of accessory dies that you can use for pull tab indicators. So it's super fun to have all those options. So right now we're going to work on our background. I have a panel here that is 4 1/4 by 8.5 inches long, so just half of a sheet of paper, and then an extra panel. And I'm going to turn it to the side so you could see how I've prepared these panels to have enough room to ink blend a full background for our extended scene. So I have to cut 2 of the side pieces and 1 for the center, and I'm just going to mark it so that I know where the first piece ends and where that second piece ends. And I'm gonna ink blend a rainbow going all the way down. So I want to make sure that there's enough space where all of the colors will be seen in between those panels, if that makes sense. I'm using Distress Oxides today, and I know I'm going a little bit fast, but if you want all of the colors that I used for the Copic coloring as well as all of the oxides that I'm using, be sure to check out the coordinating blog post where everything will be linked for your convenience. Okay, so I am using the cloudy stencil, and again, I'm going from top to bottom, and I'm just going to ink blend the rainbow. So quickly, the colors that I've used here are Festive Berries, Dried Marigold, Squeezed Lemonade, Twisted Citron, Mowed Lawn, Peacock Feathers, Mermaid Lagoon, and then finally Wilted Violet. And when I get to Wilted Violet, there is some space left at the bottom, so I'm going to loop back to the top and reuse Festive Berries and a bit of Dried Marigold at the very bottom. And as you can see, I'm using a very light hand, and I'm trying to make the ink blending as seamless as I can, going from one panel into the next. Okay, so when I'm done ink blending, I'm going to go ahead and die cut these pieces off camera, and we'll get the top front panel as well as the 2 slider panels at the top and bottom. Okay, so now I'm going to work on my mechanism. First, we're going to create the housing for the mechanism, which uses 2 cuts from that bigger rectangle die with that tab. And then we have the mechanism or slider portion. And these are all die cut out of white paper because it's nothing that you'll be able to see. And then I have my other top portion there. I'm going to cut off the tab on that portion and then my 2 slider panels. All right, so now for the slider portion, I'm going to measure the space in between these 2 little notches, and it's about 2 1/4. What we want is a flimsy material that's going to be able to convert into a belly band around those notches and be able to slide around freely without any hindrance. I'm using some cellophane packaging, but a grocery bag is really good for this as well. That's probably even better than what I'm using here. I just happen to have it nearby, so I grabbed it and that's what I'm using. So I cut a long piece from it without any kinks or seams. You want it to be seamless. And then I'll adhere it together with some double-sided adhesive that's super strong. And when you adhere this to create a belly band around this mechanism slider portion, you want to make sure that it's not too snug so that there's not a whole lot of resistance when you're sliding it back and forth, but it's not so loose either that it's flimsy. So as you can see here, I'm testing how much resistance there is and how snug it is, and I think I'm okay with this. Again, a grocery bag would slide a little bit better because this material is a little bit thicker, there is a little bit more resistance. And now to create the housing for that mechanism, the slider portion, we have two of these pieces with tabs on them that I die cut using that larger rectangle. I'm going to add double-sided adhesive to one of those panels so that I can adhere the two together. I'm going to use the grid marks on my work surface there to make sure that I line it up perfectly before I burnish that fold. And I'm not going to seal that other flap just yet because we need to finish our mechanism by attaching our slider portions onto it. So I have my two end pieces here and I'm going to adhere them to that plastic on our belly band so that we can slide it back and forth. And what we're going to do is we're going to have one glued to the back and one glued to the front. So I'm going to use this one and adhere it to the back first, and I want it to be where the seal is on that belly band. So that way, when it pulls out, it's going to glide to the left and it won't hinder the rest of the belly band movement. Then I'll flip it over and adhere that second panel to the opposite end. And that way, they'll both glide in opposite directions to extend our scene. Okay, so now I'm going to test it out, and as you can see, they both glide okay with a little bit of tension. That's why it's important to put this piece in a housing or in an envelope of sorts so that it supports the front and back of these panels for gliding in and out. On this mechanism, I'm going to use some 1/8 inch tape all the way across the bottom and the top on both the front and the back sides. Now on this housing, I forgot to die cut some notches so that we can easily grab our slider panels. So I went ahead and did that off camera on all four ends of each of those tabs. And now I'm going to go ahead and remove the release paper from our adhesive and then attach it to the bottom portion of this little housing unit that we've made. Once it's in position, I'm going to remove the backing or the release paper from the adhesive on the front side of that tab as well, and then we'll press down and adhere our envelope together. So there's adhesive on all of the parts and all of the tabs, and now we have our little glider mechanism. I love that our extended scene can be vertical or horizontal. For my scene today, I decided to go with vertical because I've never done it before. So before adhering that center panel onto the outer housing of our mechanism, I cut off the tab and then I also die cut those notches onto that panel as well before adhering it to the mechanism envelope. I have an A2 size card base behind my mechanism now, and I thought there was too much white space, so I wanted to add a bit more color and interest to the background. I'm going to use the largest die from the small stitched rectangle Stackables, and I die cut that from some Watercolor Wishes rainbow paper. This will add a nice subtle color in the background and give a little bit more interest to our border. Okay, before I adhere that mechanism to my card, I'm going to go ahead and die cut some more notches or pull tab indicators for the top and bottom so that it gives it a bit more interest and makes it a little bit more obvious that this is a double slider surprise. And I wanted to color a bit of color into the inside of this little reveal window so that when I fold and adhere this to our slider windows, the little carrots are a little bit more noticeable. I'm using the same double-sided adhesive to add to the inside of these little pull tab indicators, and that will secure itself around the top and bottoms of my slider panels. This also gives the recipient a place to grab so that they can pull and slide the mechanism back into place. So now that I'm done with that, I'll add some foam adhesive on the back, again giving more space so the recipient can grab and pull those panels out. Okay, so the base and foundation of the card is done. All we have to do is create our scenes. I've roughly laid out where I want everything to go, and when I'm happy with the placement, I'll slowly work one panel at a time, adhering things down, working from the bottom first, and then I'm going to move to my top panel. And once I've had those glued, then I'll stamp the sentiment on that longer cloud that I'm going to put on that main panel at the front. So essentially we have a main scene that can sit on its own, so be a standalone scene, and then we have these extended scenes at the top and bottom, so it's like 3 cards in one. And that finishes my double slider surprise card for today. I hope you enjoyed this interactive tutorial. Thank you so much for stopping by, and I hope you all have a great day. Bye everyone!